everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling what is honestly one of the absolute biggest heartbreaks in viticulture. Look, if you grow grapes, whether you're running a massive commercial operation or just tending to a cherished backyard vine, you know the stakes are incredibly high. You put in months of pruning, feeding, and just careful observation, eagerly waiting for that sweet, perfect harvest. But, well, nature has a way of throwing a curveball. And today, we're looking at a threat that can literally decimate all your hard work in a matter of days. Picture this. It's midsummer, your vines are this vibrant, lush green, you've got beautiful clusters of grapes forming, and the whole shebang just looks absolutely perfect. But then you take a morning walk through the rows and you notice something kind of eerie. A fine, whitish, powdery film has appeared on the leaves. It almost looks like someone snuck in overnight and just dusted your plants with flour. If left unchecked, this white ghost is going to rapidly transform your promising vineyard into a dusty, cracked, and rotting graveyard of grapes. It's a devastating sight. But the good news? You can absolutely fight back. All right, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the silent vineyard threat. Second, the biology of vine mildew. Third, smart prevention and technology. Fourth, organic and chemical treatments. And finally, integrated pest management strategies. Let's get right to it. Section 1, the silent vineyard threat. So, to defeat an enemy, you first have to understand exactly what it is, right? And we need to be crystal clear here. Vine mildew isn't just some cosmetic issue that makes your leaves look a bit dirty. No, it's a highly aggressive pathogen. Think of it as a literal energy vampire. Once these fungal spores latch onto your vines, the mycelium actually penetrates that top layer of the leaf cells to forcefully extract nutrients. In doing so, it effectively shuts down the plant's ability to photosynthesize. The leaves deform, they curl up, turn yellow, and die off way too early. And without those leaves acting as the plant's solar panels, your grapes simply can't mature. They split open, expose their seeds, and ultimately just rot away. It drains the absolute life out of your vines. Moving on to Section 2, the biology of vine mildew. Now, what's really interesting here is that when people casually say mildew, they're actually often talking about two completely different biological villains, and you've got to know the difference to treat them. On one side, we have downy mildew, also known as Plasmopara viticola. Actually, scratch that. It's not even a true fungus. It's an oomycete, a fungus-like organism. You'll see it as these yellowish, oily spots on top of the leaves with this kind of gray-violet fuzz underneath. The key here is that it absolutely needs free moisture, like rain or heavy dew, to spread. On the flip side, we have powdery mildew, or odium. Now, this is a true fungus. It creates that classic white flour-like powder on both sides of the leaves and the berries. And here's the fascinating paradox. Powdery mildew thrives in warm, humid air, but the spores can actually germinate on perfectly dry leaves. In fact, heavy, continuous rain can sometimes wash powdery mildew right away. So, a dry, humid, stifling summer day, that is literally a powder keg for odium. To really grasp its terrifying speed, we need to trace the life cycle. During the winter, these pathogens are hiding out. Downy mildew overwinters in fallen leaves on the soil, while powdery mildew hides as thickened mycelium tucked right inside the buds or the cracked bark of your vines. Then, spring hits, and the trap is sprung. Once temperatures reach about 10 to 11 degrees Celsius, the spores activate and just wait for the right moisture. By summer, with warm temperatures and high humidity, the spread is explosive. Powdery mildew can pump out a new generation of spores incredibly fast, riding the wind to infect brand new plants. Then, by autumn, as it cools down, it prepares to go dormant all over again. So, looking at this timeline, it's obvious why your timing is absolutely crucial. If you're waiting until midsummer to even think about mildew, honestly, you're already losing the war. Which brings us to Section 3, smart prevention and technology. The absolute best defense against vine mildew is a proactive offense. We want to make your vineyard a completely hostile environment for fungi before they even show up. So let's talk about some evergreen viticulture principles. First up, if you're planting new vines, choose disease-resistant varieties right from the start. That gives you a massive head start. Second, you've got to prune for maximum air circulation. Stagnant air is a fungus's best friend, guys. You want the wind and those UV rays from the sun to really penetrate the canopy. Third, watch out for the nitrogen trap. Over-fertilizing with nitrogen creates these massive, juicy leaves with very thin cell walls. That is basically an all-you-can-eat buffet for fungi. Use well-rotted compost instead. Fourth is strict hygiene. Clean up and burn those infected fallen leaves. Never, ever toss them in a cold compost bin. And finally, leverage some technology. You can use digital garden planners like BioGarden 365 to calculate the optimal plant spacing to guarantee that essential airflow. Now, I really want to highlight this number for you, 25.
Around 25 degrees Celsius is the absolute danger zone where powdery mildew spreads with terrifying efficiency. So when you're checking the weather forecast and you see temperatures creeping into the mid-20s combined with muggy, high humidity, that's your signal. Your vines are at maximum risk right then, and your preventative measures need to be totally dialed in.
Okay, Section 4, Organic and Chemical Treatments. So what happens when prevention isn't quite enough and those dreaded white spots actually appear? Let's open up the toolkit. We'll start with a highly effective organic home remedy that is actually backed by real viticulture science: the milk spray. Here's the recipe. Mix 1 part fresh milk, ideally unpasteurized or just full-fat household milk, with 5 parts water. Fill up a manual sprayer. Now, why does this actually work? Well, the proteins in the milk, specifically lactoferrin, react with the sun's UV rays to create free radicals that literally destroy the fungus. It also alters the leaf's pH, making it super hostile to spores. But remember, because it requires that UV activation, you absolutely must spray this thoroughly on a sunny morning. Here's a second organic recipe for you: the pH shock. Mildew really prefers a neutral to slightly acidic environment, so you mix 1 teaspoon of baking soda, or honestly, potassium bicarbonate is even better, into 1 liter of water and add a few drops of plant oil or liquid soap just to help it stick. This rapidly alkalizes the leaf surface, which basically bursts the cell walls of the fungus. But a quick word of warning here: do not fall into the trap of thinking more is better. If you overdose the baking soda, you will chemically burn your leaves, so stick strictly to the recipe. Now, for larger vineyards or really severe outbreaks, we have to look at commercial treatments, and these generally fall into 2 main camps. First, we have contact fungicides, like traditional copper for downy mildew and sulfur for powdery mildew. These create a preventative shield right on the outside of the leaf. They're excellent and often approved for organic farming. But the massive con? Heavy rain, like anything over 15 millimeters, is going to wash them right off. On the other hand, we have systemic fungicides, like topaz or falcon. These actually penetrate the plant tissue and move within the sap. The big pro here is they have incredible curative action, effectively stopping the fungus from the inside out. The con: if you over-rely on them, the fungus can build genetic resistance. So the absolutely crucial point here is what we call the application golden rule. Listen, it doesn't matter if you're using organic milk or a high-tech systemic chemical. If you apply it wrong, it's going to fail. You have to ensure full, complete coverage on the top and the bottom of the leaves, as well as the stems. And secondly, timing is literally everything. Never, ever spray in the scorching midday sun. Those water droplets will act like tiny little magnifying glasses and burn your leaves. Plus, if you're using organic sulfur, it becomes highly phytotoxic at temperatures over 30 degrees Celsius. Spraying sulfur on a really hot afternoon will literally scorch your vineyard. Bringing us to our final part, Section 5, Integrated Pest Management Strategies. We've covered a ton of ground today, right? From pruning all the way to chemical biology. But to truly win this war, we have to bring it all together into a cohesive, long-term strategy. And this chart brilliantly illustrates what we call integrated pest management, or IPM. You can't just rely on a single miracle spray. A robust defense is built on a massive foundation of structural prevention, spacing, pruning, and hygiene, which makes up a huge 40% chunk of your effort. Then you layer that with continuous organic monitoring, using digital tools, tracking the weather, and deploying early, gentle interventions like milk or baking soda. Finally, you reserve chemical interventions as a precise, targeted tool for when conditions are extreme or severe outbreaks occur, carefully alternating them so you don't build resistance. It's a holistic, whole ecosystem approach. As we wrap up this explainer, I need to deliver a quick professional reminder. Always consult local agricultural experts to tailor these strategies to your specific vineyard conditions. Every microclimate is a little different, and local regulations on what you can spray definitely vary. But look, armed with this knowledge, you are no longer at the mercy of the white ghost. You know its weaknesses, you know exactly how it moves, and you know how to stop it. So, my final question to you is this. Look at your vines right now. What is the very first preventative step you are going to take tomorrow morning to guarantee a healthy, bountiful harvest? Keep learning, keep growing, and we'll see you next time.